Evening. Just want to check something real quick, make sure everything's working properly. It is. Beautiful. So first things first. It's been one of those years, hasn't it? It's been very, very, very hard to basically do anything this year. And if you notice I'm talking quietly, it's because it's quite late at night where I'm from. It is 1:30 in the morning. So I'll be as quiet as it can be. It's been one of those years where we're all getting regularly kicked in the dick, it seems. And as someone who suffers from depression, I thought it was best to come online and give my take on what is an awful thing in depression. And I thought, if I'm going to do a video on depression, how am I going to do it? How am I going to approach it? Do I do it from a video game standpoint? Do I do it from a wargaming standpoint? And I thought, well, I haven't done a writing video in a while. Let's crack on with that. Because this is something that is very intrinsic and dear to me, is that I write a lot. And depression has a real negative effect on my output. It just does. I suffer really badly. I doubt myself. And one thing I would like you to know as you watch this is that this isn't a catch-all video. I'm not a psychiatrist. I can only share with you what's worked for me. But in all honesty, this isn't going to be the same for everybody. If this helps you at all, I'm very, very happy about that. But at the same time, things can go wrong in your life. You know, things might not be going very well. But it's important to recognise what writing is. Okay, what writing can do for you. So what I'm going to do first, we're going to have 3 slides in which I go over how the feelings of depression in regards to writing, how you feel, just so you can get a sense of where I'm coming from. And you can get a sense during the video then of whether this suits you or not, because if it doesn't, you can switch it off and never come back to it. But if any of this applies to you, then stick towards the end, and I'm going to share with you what I do and how I try and get over it. And I need to stress, even when I do these things, sometimes it's not enough. Okay? Depression is an insidious animal. It's horrible. And it's cyclical. So the more you feel depressed, the more you feel bad that you are depressed, and there's no way out of it. It's a spiral. You just got to ride it through. So, how do we ride it through? Well, we don't get over it. In response to that question at the bottom there. So the first feeling that I get, and you may get, when you're coming to do some writing and when you're in a lull, as I like to call it, is the task of writing is huge. It's a huge endeavour, which is why I'm in awe of writers who can just knock out books, who can just knock out, really good pieces of work. Because there are lots of writers out there who, I'm even reading Brandon Sanderson right now. He's a good writer. I wouldn't say he's phenomenal at all. I wouldn't even say he's in the top 20 of people I've read if I'm going to rank them. But he's making a lot of money and he churns out all these books. So I'm in awe of people like that, to have the self-confidence to just pile on and get on with it and write a book. That's the main problem that you face, is the task is huge in front of you. And generally when you're feeling depressed, especially if it's for a prolonged period, large tasks are stupidly daunting. This is why people drop out of university, okay, when they've got depression. So the size of the task means that your nihilistic attitude and nature in when you're having an episode of depression makes it impossible to even begin. So you're looking at the task and you're thinking, what am I doing here? How am I going to do this? It's too big. It's too large. What's the point? We lead on to our final point there. What's the point? It's futile. Even starting this task is futile. It's too big for me. I can't do this. I can't do this. But it's worth examining why we think the act of writing is too big. Quentin Tarantino said he doesn't trust any writing if it doesn't feel like at least 90% of it's coming from the writer themselves. So you pour yourself into your writing. Every good writer does that. Every good writer uses experiences from their own lives and their own opinions and their own attitudes to flavour their writing. If you hate yourself, then it makes this task nearly impossible. Okay. Doubt. So we've gone on to from futility to doubt. And doubt is generally, you're not good enough and your work will never be seen by anybody. Well, that could be true. This links back to futility. What's the point of writing if no one will ever see your work? Your weak links become crippling. You hate yourself. Alright? So normally when and this is normally when you've started writing, so if you've managed to get over that first hurdle and start writing, this is when the doubt will creep in from depression. You're not good enough. Everything you write is shit. Okay? And your work will never be seen by anybody. So what's the point? What is the point? And if you have a weak link, like mine is dialogue for instance, if you have a weak link, it becomes crippling. So whenever I'm suffering from depression on an episode, and I try and write, if I try and write anything to do with dialogue, I just break down. Not in tears, but I just stop and I go and watch YouTube or something. I just had enough, you know? And there's another thing as well. When I'm on a high, when I'm feeling really good, you know, I don't want to write. I want to enjoy the feeling. I don't want to be productive. I just want to enjoy the feeling of being in a good mood. How strange is that? And the last one, guilt. Especially if you've got a family, or you've got dependents, or you're in university, or you've got responsibilities of any kind, this will come into it. There's something else you should be doing. You're guilty. Okay? There's something else you should be doing. You're wasting your time. Right, it's another big one. You're wasting your time. And no one ever makes it as a writer. The percentage of people who make it as a writer is abysmally low. Okay? So, this is the last one, and this is the one that normally kicks me out the game when I've had enough. You know, no one's ever going to see your work, so there's really something else you should be doing, something more productive. Okay, you're wasting your time. Okay, and this is when you've got people definitely in your life who, you know, maybe tag into this. Not their fault. They just want what's best for you, but still, it can happen. So what do you do after this very cheery first couple of pages? What do you do? Well, first thing I do is I don't try. If I'm not feeling it because of my depression, I recognise that, and I move on and I do something else. You know, not every depressive episode is the same. Sometimes they're mild, like I'm currently in one now. I'm surprised I even got the mental acuity to do this. But sometimes they're not that bad, so you can get on with it. And this is how I'm feeling. You know, right now I could do this. You know, but if it's bad, don't try. You are allowed to take time away from writing to work on your mental state, even if that takes months or years. Your mental state is the most important thing in the world. Because I've seen what can happen to people. I've been affected by what can happen to people if they let their mental state drift, and eventually if they give in. It can be awful, and it can ruin lives, not just the person who isn't here anymore. So it's important to recognise when you're having one of these states and take time to work on it Doesn't matter how long it takes. Writing can be on the back burner. It will be here when you come back. It's not going anywhere. Number 2. Recognize the bravery of what you're doing if you do attempt to write. So if you know you've got depression and you start writing, you should recognize how amazing that is. The fact that you're getting out of your own head and you're writing something on the page. As I said before, nearly everything that you're putting into your work is you. And if you're somehow beating depression by writing, that's amazing. That's an amazing achievement. And you should be very, very proud of yourself for even starting, to be honest with you. But just recognize the bravery of what you're doing, okay? With all that self-doubt, with all that self-hatred, you're still putting that to one side and starting to write. This is why most writers are, or have been, especially in the rock and roll days, potheads or alcoholics. Number 3, give yourself permission to be bad. This is likely the most difficult thing to do on this list if you have depression. So, yeah, this is one piece of advice that always irks me when you have these self-help guidance counselors, or because this is good advice technically. Giving yourself permission to be bad, or the one I commonly hear is give yourself permission to suck. Whilst this is sound advice, it's not easy. It's not as easy as people seem to think it is when they're giving you all this wonderful talks online. Because no one wants to be bad. I don't want to be bad at what I'm doing. You don't want to be bad at what you're doing. Especially something as deeply personal as writing. Because it takes a lot of effort. Writing takes a lot of effort. Okay, I can academically write an essay in half an hour. It takes me very little effort at all. But writing to entertain, that can sap you. That can sap your energy. That can sap everything that you're doing. Okay, you can start to really go down a bad rabbit hole. Okay, it takes a lot out of you. So when I say give yourself permission to be bad, that's true, but please take that with a pinch of salt. Okay, you're not always going to be able to do that, and that's okay. That's okay. Number 4, and this is the most important for me. If you do manage to write, and you've followed all those steps, if you've started, leave your completed work and come back to it after you've slept. Okay? Do not touch it in the meantime. And if you can't sleep, leave it for a day. Is my opinion. Because that will separate you from the work. It will allow you to think of different things. And then when you come to it, your mind will be reset, and you'll be able to read it basically without any sort of lingering bias or loathing in there. Hopefully the episode would have passed by then. And if it hasn't, well, that's fine. But leave it for at least until you've slept on it. Because that gives you that time to come back and see it with a fresh pair of eyes. And if it's bad, then okay, give yourself permission to be bad. I was having an episode. It's one of those things. Keep it somewhere, and then rewrite it or think of something else to do. Okay. So these are the 4 things that I do. These are the 4 things I try and keep in mind. And as you can see, it isn't a list of do this, then do this, then do this, then do this, because that's not what mental health is. It doesn't fit into these nice, neat little categories. These are just 4 things that have helped me in the past. I'm not always even able to do any of the 4, or maybe I can do 1 of the 4 or 2 of the 4. I've taken long breaks from writing. I've taken months away from writing, where my mental state just can't handle it. That's okay, because I come back and eventually I'm energized, and eventually I want to do it, and that's how you should act with your writing too. That's important. And it's important that if you have depression to recognize what it is, and to focus on number 2, is to recognize the bravery of the fact that you're going to be writing. That's amazing. That's an amazing thing you're doing. I've had some amazing things sent to me since I've had this channel. Really, really good work. Fantastic work. Even when I've come back and I've criticized a few things and pointed a few things out to change, it's still been amazing work, So all I can say is, if you're writing and you have depression, or anxiety or any sort of mental illness, please just take a step back and just see how superhuman that is. And if you don't have mental illness, if you don't have depression, if you don't have anxiety, and you're watching this video, this may seem pretty weird to you that someone could feel this way when they're doing something that they love. And all power to you. All power to you. You're the people that I need to reach out to help people get through this, to help people when they're writing and they're trying to do something that they love, but their brain just isn't letting them. The brain's just saying, you're not good enough, you can't even try, don't try. Why are you trying? It's too large, you can't do it. So depending on the situation, whichever one of these 4 things gives you the most success, stick with it. And please recognise that I'm always here to email. I'm always here if you want to comment on one of my videos. The best way to get in touch with me is to comment on one of my videos and then email me, because my Gmail doesn't always alert me when I get emails. So comment and then email me if you can. But apart from that, thank you very, very, very much for watching. If you need any advice, any help, I'm always here. I don't charge for any of my lessons or services or anything like that. I am a private tutor, that's how I pay the bills. I teach ancient history, classics, ancient warfare, and creative writing. But anything to do with the channel, I don't charge for. I do have a Patreon. If you want to go and have a little look at that, you can do. There is a video on my channel somewhere on how to do that. But for the meantime, thank you very, very, very much for watching, and I'll speak to you guys next time. Cheers.